Welcome to Super Meat World. Into this update, we're gonna play Hellostone National Park. And what do you know? We found it on page 2. We didn't even need to do any kind of research this time around in order to find it. So it's as if some higher, superior being wanted me to play this chapter. Okay, or maybe I finally got lucky with the randomized recommended chapters list. So, into this update, we're playing Hellostone National Park, or rechristened to Hellostone because this name will have been way too long for the Super Meat World portal. It was made by RyokoTK, who made many other chapters such as Starlight, Minneapolis, Jumper Returns, Max Jumper, Vexing Vortex, and I think that's pretty much all of his chapters, but all of these chapters are pretty notable for looking incredibly good, for having really good gameplay in overhaul, and finally for being hard as hell. If anything, this is the easiest chapter that he's done, and even then you'll see that it's still pretty damn hard in overall, but it'll be manageable unlike some of his other chapters, such as Max Jumper, which I've never beaten, if only because it's ridiculously difficult, but yeah, in overall this is one of my favorite chapters in Super Meat World. I'm really amazed by this chapter, if only because, well, I've said into a previous video that Forest Tile set is not really known for its variety, if only because you only had 2 different style of obstacles in it, like saw blades, rotating saw blades, and fire, but even with those limited obstacles, you'll see that he manages to do a whole lot with them, and the chapter constantly stays interesting, as well as really engaging to play in overall. What's nice about this chapter is that most of the levels usually have a pretty good continuation in terms of graphics. They look like they belong into the same cloth, and even then all of the levels look really different and, well, like I said, they're pretty engaging. Most of the jumps that you have to do into this chapter are pretty complicated, but they're nothing esoteric or fucked up or anything. It's really simple stuff for the most part, but the jumps themselves are pretty hard, and therefore you have to do a whole lot of precision into your jumps in order to not die. This level is one of the only levels in the chapter that I really don't like. I don't know, it just feels like a huge disconnect from the rest of the chapter. And if I remember correctly, this was the final level to be done for this chapter, which, I don't know, just makes me feel like, okay, we have to finish this chapter, so, okay, this level made out of green and green, Okay, this is probably not how it happened, but I don't know, this is just the kind of vibe that I'm getting out of it. If anything, this stretch of 2 levels is probably the weakest point of the entire chapter. From now on, we'll be set for a whole lot of crazy adventures into the realm of saw blades. Even though this is the first chapter that RyokoTK has made, this is probably my favorite one in the bunch, mainly because the level design into this one feels a whole lot more cleaner in overall, compared to the rest of the chapters that he's done after that, which got more and more convoluted and pretty crazy, but not the kind of crazy that you really enjoy playing. With that said, I'll still play all of his other chapters after that, if only because they're way over all of the other chapters that you see on Super Meat World for the most part. His chapters remain very well designed and enjoyable, but yeah, I just have a few qualms about them, which just stop them from making them as perfect as I think they could have been, but yeah. I'll be showcasing all of them with only one exception, which is Max Jumper, if only because I cannot beat this chapter. It is just way too hard for me, and I don't think that I'll ever be able to beat it, if only because I'm not having any kind of enjoyment from playing this one chapter, and well, you gotta draw the line at one point. Yeah, this level always tends to confuse me if okay, I should have died here, I'm really lucky, but yeah, it just takes me some time in order to figure out where you even start, which is why I was idling like some sort of moron at the beginning of the level. Welcome to the realm of Sega, meat boy. Because I'm pretty sure that Angel Island was the name of a Sonic level. And I don't remember which game, if only because they're pretty much interchangeable in my mind, but yeah, the point still stands. It's a Sonic level, and I'm really damn sure of it. This is one of my favorite levels from the chapter, if only because, I don't know, it just looks really neat. I love the concept of having a floating island into the sky. The graphics are pretty simplistic, but it's a simplicity that I really enjoy for the most part. So, yeah, we're just soaring into a happy sky. We're gonna be soaring through happy, fluffy skies. Ooh, that's nice. we're just gonna take a small touch of the tail. No, wait. I'm not the Bob Ross of Meat Boy, so I really should drop all of this right now. But still, my point stands. It's a really happy level, and well, you'll feel happy while you're playing it, even when you'll have died over 1,000 times, okay, or not, because this level is really not that hard. This is one of the only levels in the chapter where I think that the graphical department suffers for a bit, if only because it just feels as if the saw blades don't really have any kind of reason to be there, if only because usually you just put some kind of object in front of the saw blades and then they follow it, but the objects that guide the saw blades around the place are into the background, so they're easy to miss. I mean, I don't know, it's just a pet peeve in overhaul, but I don't know, it just feels nicer this way in overhaul. But that'll pretty much be the only moment into this entire video where I lambast this chapter on the graphics, if only because I only could dream of making levels that look this good. I really like the idea behind this level, it just really looks great and well, it's really well pulled off. This jump, however, is a bastard to pull off. You might be thinking at some point that you have to jump through the poles in order to be able to do this jump, but no. In fact, you have to jump around the saw blades, but you have to be really quick in doing so. As you can see, going through the poles is not a good idea, you have to go like this. It's a really narrow window that you're fitting through. And here you have to fuck up at the very end, just like that, and then you have to do all of this again. And it's not always easy to pull off again, but after some practice you'll eventually be able to figure it out. Level design into this chapter certainly is becoming a whole lot trickier. I mean, the jumps that you have to do into this level for the most part are incredibly narrow. You might see twin saw blades a whole lot into this chapter, but they're usually used in a way that is unique enough so that the gimmick stays fresh during the entire chapter. Oh, and by the way, into this shaft up there, in the early version of the chapter, there was a bandage up there, but whenever all chapters have been re-uploaded for Super Meat World by Inman, well, for some reason he decided to remove all of the bandages from the map, which I don't really understand, if only because I always thought that adding bandages into custom map was a pretty good way to add optional challenge that was completely free of any kind of risk or anything, because bandages into Super Meat World don't do anything. If you're collecting them, it's at your own risk and peril, but if you want to tax yourself and challenge yourself trying to beat those and get the bandages, then you have the option to do so, instead of just being locked to finishing the level and doing nothing else right after. All of the chapters that were first uploaded onto the Super Meat World portal whenever it was open, because back when the portal was open, there only was featured chapters on it. There was no level uploading yet, you couldn't make your own chapter, so at the very beginning of the level portal, there was simply the best of the best, instead of having the best buried within mountains of shit. Because this is what Super Meat World is mainly all about. Some really nice chapter interspersed with a whole lot of overly crappy stuff that has no quality control whatsoever. There was a reason why I made the Super Meat World videos back in the time where I will play the worst levels found on it, and that was only to showcase that if you don't know what you're looking for and simply click random levels without any kind of care or research, you will simply find nothing but absolute torment upon really bad levels. As far as I know, when I started doing these videos, there was no recommended chapters list yet, so the only thing that you could do whenever you wanted to play a level was to simply guess and hope that whatever chapter you will choose will not be crappy, but usually the success rate was pretty low. This level always tend to give me trouble, mainly because I always keep thinking that this corner into the place where the saw blades are will protect me, but it's a horrible lie. And finally, you have to make it through this breakable walkway while avoiding two of the saw blades swinging toward you all at once, which really isn't simple, and then you have to do all sorts of really narrow jumps right after that. Yeah, the last few levels of the chapter will be quite a doozy. But we will find a way to make it through, because this is the kind of person that we are. I really like the look of this level, but unfortunately I don't like all of the waiting that you have to do all around it. I don't know, maybe it's possible to speed through the entire thing without any kind of stopping if you know exactly what you're doing. But for the most part, you have to constantly keep pausing in order for the obstacles to be aligned properly so that you can go right after. And once again, on the upper right corner of the screen, there was a bandage there, which is why there's a whole bunch of saw blades, which seem to serve absolutely no purpose, and why the hell am I doing this? And yeah, it's possible to speed through this thing, but once again, it's really tricky, and you cannot waste any kind of time. This might be one of my only qualms regarding this chapter. Most of it just doesn't feel very speedrun friendly, or at least you have to be some kind of platforming god in order to be able to make these levels speedrun friendly, but usually you'll always have to wait around for the saw blades to be aligned properly, and then finally you can do your jumps or running all around the place. If you can speed through all of these levels while being unscathed, well, kudos for you, because this is one hard as hell accomplishment. And yeah, I really don't know why I died so often at the end here. This is kinda embarrassing. This level just further shows how hard it can be to make a good looking forest level, because yeah, it really is easy to make those levels feel incredibly pixelated, if only because, well, of the square nature of the editor, and usually you don't want to use slopes at any crucial part of the level given how buggy they are to navigate. But yeah, I think this is one of the least appealing levels in the chapter on a graphical standpoint. I don't know, it just feels not as pretty as the other ones. But thankfully the level remains really fun to play, so who cares about the graphic into this one instance when they're at least acceptable. But yeah, was that one of the first levels that he made? Funny because yeah, I don't know, it just really doesn't look that great compared to the other levels in the pack. I mean, that saw blade structure at the end just defies all laws of logic and gravity, and oh, I really hate this level. This is the one level into the chapter that I really cannot stand. And only because, well, compared to most other levels into the chapter, the camera is slightly zoomed in, so your movements seem a whole lot more sensitive. And finally, there's this huge as hell spinning saw blade contraption in the middle, which is a living nightmare. In fact, I don't even know why the camera is zoomed in, if only because it makes it so that it's even harder to see where the huge spinning contraption is in relation to you, so you have to plan all of your jumps, but it can be tricky whenever you cannot see the entire thing, because yeah, okay, at this part it's not a huge problem, but the early section can be slightly more difficult, if only because you don't always see where the other saw blades are. It also happens that precision and timing are very important, especially here. There is no time to waste here. And yeah, you have to wait until this one other platform, but I was lucky here, so I'll take it, Sorry, wandering meat, but I'm gonna go into the other level right away, funny because I hate looking at this one level. And in contrast, the other level that you have right after just seems really easy. I mean, this is a level that almost seems straight from level 1-3 into the original game, but instead of making a huge jump over a huge chasm and nothing else, well, you have to go down first and had a whole lot of saw blades in order to make the going a whole lot more interesting. And will this chapter go out with a bang? Obviously it does. This level is a gigantic mindfuck, if only because, I don't know, I'm just a huge fan of levels that just showcase the entire play area into the entire screen. And, well, it's pretty involving as you can see here. There's a whole lot to see and do here. But the path toward this level is kind of misleading, if only because, I don't know, the first reflex that I'm having is to go to that one part with the two spinning saw blades on the top left corner of the screen. But you will do that in order to, once again, get a bandage that is no longer here because Edmund decided to retire all of the bandages away from their level. Yeah, they were too old and they needed to be replaced by nothing. But instead of going to the upper left, you have to go to the bottom left, the one part where there's the huge saw blade and the other two spinning saw blades. This is where the goal is, but you will see that it takes me a long time to realize that, because yeah, I just keep thinking, oh, this is where I have to go, if only because it just seems incredibly logical. And here we go, the light has shined. I finally realized that going into this one path is useless, so now I'm finally gonna try going for the actual level exit, which is about 5 times easier to go through. Okay, or maybe the landing here can be a little bit tricky, but in overall, it just beats having to go upward there. I don't know, this is a level that I will have remade in the end, just in order to add a key to the top right corner of the screen, in order to make it so that you will have to go to the end. Now that will be a epic level. And I'll be hit for Hellostone National Park. And holy shit, I died exactly 100 times. Was I doing this on purpose or what? But yeah, with this bit of freakiness aside, it's time to move on. Speaking of the end, this is where we're going next. Coming up next, Remnants by Code 92.